Hi everybody, and a massive warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Darren Bishton, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon's session. This workshop is entitled A Model for Sharing Good Practice and Influencing Policy for Care Leavers, including our response to COVID and the post-COVID world. Before we start, there's a few housekeeping rules I'd like to confirm. The session will last approximately 45 minutes. During the session, certainly around the start, we'll be using an online quiz. So if you've got a chance to grab a phone or a tablet spare, that would be really good, and we can involve ourselves in the quiz. During the event, you can ask some questions through the Q&A tab on the hands, and I'll be looking at those and moderating those as we go through. But please ensure that you're in the session tab and not the event tab, because that might then send your question right across the whole of the presentations. I'll be gathering those questions, and then hopefully we'll have time at the end just to present those to the presenters so they've got a chance to respond. You can also use the thumbs up icon to upvote a question, and if you'd like to follow up a question, please preference it with follow up. So that's kind of the house rules and ground rules for the session. I'd like now to introduce Hannah McCowen, the manager for the National Leaving Care Benchmarking Forum, who will be leading this event. Hannah, over to you.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Hannah, the manager of the Leaving Care Benchmarking Forum. We're actually going to start the session with a Kahoot quiz with Billie Jo, one of our sessional workers, is going to lead on that. So over to you, Billie Jo, and I'll bring up the screen.
So hello everybody, I'm Billie Jo. I'm a sessional worker for the Benchmarking Forum. So like Hannah said, we're going to just run a quick Kahoot as a bit of an icebreaker. I'm not sure how many people will have used Kahoot before, but if you just look in the box, Darren will put in the link to Kahoot. Like Darren said, it's better if you open it on like a phone or a tablet, just makes it easier to follow. So if you go to www.kahoot.it, and then it'll ask you for the game pin, which is 8492810. And then as people join, it should come up on the screen. So Matt and Hannah have joined. We'll use it all the time. I speed you with it now. If anyone's struggling to get on, if you just pop a message into the chat box, and Darren will be able to see if he can help. I'll give it a couple of minutes for people to get on, because it can take a while. I'll start at 25 to, so in 2 minutes. I'll let people try and get on first. So we've got 4 people. I think we've got 8 in the room, so there might be a couple more still to join. Just give it another minute. There we go, we've got another person.
Do you want me to start it off, Billie Jo?
Yeah, I think we'll make a start now. We've got a few people in. So, the colours match the shapes. You'll understand what I mean in a second. So the first question is a practice question. What is the biggest European country by land area? So is it red triangle England, diamond blue Germany, circle yellow for Russia, or square green for Ukraine? So yeah, it's Russia. Next question. So the rest are more like tailored towards the event. So question 2 is, what is your job title? So obviously for this one, there's not a right or a wrong answer. We got 4 people answered. So we've got director, CEO, operational lead, or national leave and care, benchmark and forum manager. Which country in Europe are you based? So again, there's not a right or wrong answer. We've got Belgium, Finland, England, and the UK. I think we had exactly the same this morning, to be fair. Next. At what age does a young person become a care leaver in your country? I think that's everyone answered, Hannah. So we've got 18. Oh, I mean, did everyone say 18? I think. It's not showing all the answers. Next question. Are care leaving services co-produced with care leavers in the country you were based? Yes, no, or not sure. So 2 said yes and 1 said not sure. I think this is the last question, maybe? Yeah. So what are the main issues for care leavers in your country? Is this the one where I've given too many seconds, Hannah? I'll wait till everyone answers. So we've got poverty, transitions, and ETE. Not too sure what that means.
That could be employment, training, education.
Yeah. Do we have that? But yeah, we have that the other way around, don't we? So yeah. Right. I think that was all the questions. So now I'm going to hand back over to Hannah, but we'll just see who won the Kahoot. So Oti came third. First was Matt. Well done, Matt. Right, I'm going to hand back over to Hannah.
Thanks, Billie Jo. That was great. I'm just going to share a presentation, so let me just bring that up. Hi everyone. So this is just an overview of what we're going to talk about in this workshop this afternoon. So I'm going to talk about the model of the National Leaving Care Benchmarking Forum and what it is, and also some of the needs of care leavers in England at the moment. Billie Jo, who you've just heard from, is one of our sessional workers, and she's going to speak about the Young Persons Benchmarking Forum. Matt Clayton, who manages the team in Coventry, is going to bring the sort of local authority perspective, and then I'm going to talk about our response to COVID and hopefully the post-COVID world moving forward. And if you've got any questions, as Darren said, please put them in the Q&A, we've got time to answer those and at the end. So hope you enjoy it. And so what is the National Leaving Care Benchmarking Forum? So the forum is made up of 120 local authority leaving care teams, and each local authority in England, there's 149 local authorities in England, will have a team that's responsible for supporting young people as they leave care at the age of 18, and will provide support up to the age of 25. Some teams will pick that up from the age of 16, some from 18, and some from younger. And also those teams would support children that are in care as well. 80% of local authorities are part of the forum, and that gives us a really strong national voice as a collective. The aim of the forum is to improve outcomes for our nation's care leavers, and there's three sort of main areas, main activities and main focuses of the forum in terms of how we do that. The first one is around membership, events and resources. So we have events throughout the year that are aimed at young people, frontline workers and managers. And the focus of those is on sharing good practice, sharing latest sort of policy updates. And we've also got a whole wealth of resources. We've got a membership website and the opportunity to sort of network and connect with other members through that website. Second area is around national influence. We've got really close working links with Department for Education, and in England that's the government department that's responsible for looked after children and care leavers. We've got Ofsted that inspects children's services and children's homes, and HMPPS who run prisons and probation services. We've also got really good links with other leaving care organisations, and those relationships are really very two-way. So for example, Rod McPherson, who's the lead for care leavers policy at the Department for Education, he recently brought an update about health to our managers briefing in March, but he was also collecting feedback from managers saying what are the issues, where are the gaps, to take that back. The third area is around research, so sharing the latest research around young people leaving care, and also being part of that conversation about where are the gaps and where do we need that research. So that's what we do, but I think the most important question really is why? Why do we have a forum, and why do we need a forum? And the support for young people who have been leaving care has definitely and significantly improved over the last 20 years, but we're still seeing really poor outcomes for a lot of young people. And these are some of the latest statistics. So just 13% of care leavers enter higher education by the age of 19. And that's compared to 43% of the general population. Even compared to sort of disadvantaged young people who in England we would say they were eligible for pupil premium in schools or free school dinners, that's 26%. So care leavers are still sort of just half of that. 1 in 4 offenders in prison are care experienced, and care leavers are 3 times more likely to experience motherhood under the age of 18. 1 in 3 care leavers become homeless within 2 years of leaving care as well. In terms of wellbeing as well, there's some really important sort of findings there. This is an excellent report. It's called What Makes Life Good by our friends over at Quorum Voice that came out last year. And 22% of care leavers aged 16 to 24 report feeling lonely always or often. And then compared to the same age group in the general population, that's 10%. 26% of care leavers experiencing low life satisfaction. 33% would say that they had a high level of anxiety yesterday. So really important issues for care leavers. So why does the forum exist? And the answer for that really is that it's not good enough, what we're seeing at the moment. And we've definitely seen massive improvements, but would this be good enough for my child? And the answer is definitely no. There's still too many barriers for young people leaving care. And we believe that as a forum working together, we can really challenge that and campaign for the changes that are needed and share the good practice that is working so that we're raising the quality of that support across the country. Some of the changes that we've been involved with, and by no means is the forum an island, there's a lot of fantastic charities out there like Become that are campaigning in this area, but some of the sort of changes that we've been part of is extending the support of a personal advisor up to the age of 25, so care leavers can now access support as when needed up to the age of 25. The forum's done a lot of work with HMPPS, who run prisons and probation services, helping making sure that care leavers are identified or care experienced people are identified, and that staff have a better understanding of like what needs they might face that other offenders don't face. Most recently as well, we've been sharing good practice around supporting care experienced young parents. One of the examples of that is in Warwickshire. They have a project called the Baby Box Project, where a care experienced parent will be given a box, all sorts of things for the baby, thermometers, blankets. And it's not just about the practical thing, it's about saying, oh, we're here with you, we're supporting you, and building up that sort of relationship. And that's, we shared that back in January. It's now being used, already being used in about 3 or 4 other local authorities, with a number still looking at it as well. So really practical things that are really benefiting the lives of sort of individual care leavers that are getting shared across the country. So I'm going to hand over to Billie Jo. She's going to talk about the Young Persons Forum, which is like such a central part of the benchmarking forum. So Billie Jo, over to you.
So I'm going to just cover it using 4 main titles. So main activities of the forum. So the Young Persons Benchmarking Forum run events across the country. So we usually run a north and a south event, so that they're accessible for as many care leavers as possible. We've got a care leavers attend from pretty much all the local authorities that we have involved, so over 100 local authorities. When young people attend our events, they're usually supported by a participation worker from their local authority. So recent topics we've covered are digital poverty, mental health, physical health, and universal credit. I'll talk a bit more about digital poverty in a moment. So feeding back to the forum and local authorities. So for me, I feel like we feed back into the forum by pitching at areas of knowledge. So people are different areas in different situations. So for example, the example Hannah used about the Baby Box Project, I'm not an expert about what babies need, but a care leaver who's a parent is very much an expert in that area. We start with the young people and care leavers because they're experts in their own lives and experiences, and they know what's important for care leavers. We then run practitioners' events, followed by a manager's event, but we always feedback from what the young people have said. So their voice is always at the centre of every single event we run, but we have care leavers attend all of our events. But there's always a bit of healthy competition. Couldn't get out there. Healthy competition. So if one local authority sees another local authority have something, the young people get a bit competitive because they want their local authority to be better, and they all just think they're entitled to the same things, which, to be fair, they are. So there's a bit of healthy competition between care leavers and authorities, and people going back to their local authority and saying, well, they have this, we want this, we think it'd be good in our area. But because we've got really good links with local authorities, and because we've got people from all levels in local authorities, so right up to managers involved, it means that the young people can easily take things back to their local authority. So they'll use like their children in care council or their corporate parenting board, which is where the counsellors sit as well. So they can go back to them boards and say, well, Newcastle have got this, and we think this would be really good in our local authority. Could we look at having this? But because the managers have also attended the events, they can think about like the funding side of it and whether it's actually like feasible in that local authority or whether it's actually going to be beneficial. So not only do we feed back into the forum and local authorities, but we have the opportunity to work on national issues. So not every local authority has the same issues, and not every local authority has the same areas of concern, but everyone can work together to discuss these issues. So for one local authority, something that's best practice, but they can work together to talk about what is best practice and come up with better. So as a forum, like Hannah said, we have very strong links with government departments, such as the Department for Education, which is the department that like looks after care leavers. And we work with individuals who actually sit in Parliament. So for example, Mark Riddell. And recently Mark Riddell wanted some information to take back to Parliament about Digital poverty, which has been a really big topic due to the pandemic, even more so. So we asked young people a few questions. So one of the questions was, if you received data, how much data did you receive per month? So 19 of the young people, I think it was 36, 19 out of the young people said that they only got under 2 gigabytes of data. Now, in the UK, 2 gigabytes of data, it's probably going to last you a couple of days. It's basically nothing. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, you send one online meeting, because I think that would be your data gone. So that amount of young people saying they only had under 2 gigabyte of data is obviously very restricting for them. So then we asked them another question, which was, have you found it difficult to do any of the following due to a lack of data or digital devices? So 21% of the young people said they'd struggled to stay in touch with friends, which COVID's already a very isolating time, but to be isolated even further from your peers who most likely have access to digital devices, it's just it's isolating them further, if that makes sense. 15% said they struggle to engage with their education. So again, that's putting them behind their peers. If you can't attend your online classes, which university and colleges in England have mainly been online, so if you can't engage with your education, how are you expected to succeed, and how are you meant to succeed in comparison to your peers who most likely have access to this data and digital devices? Or 14% said they struggled to manage universal credit and other benefits. So in the UK, it's an online system that you use to manage your benefits. But if you can't get on to manage your benefits, how are you meant to get your money? And if you can't get your money, how are you meant to pay your bills? And it ends up being a huge cycle over something that is actually putting people in poverty due to the lack of data and the lack of digital devices. So this went back to government, and government have actually now extended the funding for digital devices for care leavers. And I think that's all I've got to say. So I'm going to hand back over to, is it Matt, I think now?
Thanks, Billie Jo. Yes, so my name is Matt Clayton, and I'm not sure my camera's gone. Yes, it has. And I am the operational lead for our food care service within Coventry. Coventry is a city in the middle of England. Our food care service works with looked after children from the age of 12 through to care leavers at 25. So we work with about children and young people. So as an authority, we joined the benchmarking forum about 7 years ago now. I have to say, over sort of the time we've been a member, it's really helped us improve our practice and improve our offer to care leavers. I think there's lots of reasons for that. I think obviously coming to sessions and hearing what's going on from the Department for Education, from Ofsted and things like that is helpful. But I think ultimately, actually the opportunity to work both with other authorities and young people in terms of shaping and influencing what services look like has been really critical to that as well. I think it's one of those things, the benchmarking one, where actually it drives good practice because you hear different ideas, like others have said, from all across the country. And so you hear something that's going on somewhere, you think, actually, we want to be doing that as well. And so that's been really interesting to see develop. And then sort of as we've been on that journey with the benchmarking forum, it's also been great to see our young people develop as well, and have young people that have sort of then gone and presented to sort of 200 leaving care managers about things that they've been involved in has been brilliant to see. I think a good example of some of the work over the last sort of couple of years, all local authorities in England have to publish their local offers, which is what they would be offering to care leavers in their authority. And so a lot of that we did through working with the forum to see what was going on elsewhere and what we could build in. And some of the best things in our local offer, things like actually making sure that care leavers are exempt from council tax, making sure that care leavers are paid the national living wage, have come out of conversations at the forum. And you find that we, from Coventry, we can contribute to other local authorities' offers and they contribute to ours in terms of ideas, which has been really good as well. I think ultimately what we're trying to do and what the forum helps us to do is make the sort of care system, and especially the leaving care side of that, as strong as it possibly can do. We did some work a couple of years back in Coventry with a fairly famous care leaver in the UK who's also a poet called Lem Cisse, and we worked with him to produce a TV show of young people telling their stories through leaving care. And that was really powerful, but what it showed too is actually the care system and leaving care isn't anywhere near where it should be. And Lem Cisse always talks about how actually taking children from their families is one of the most draconian powers that the state has. But actually, we've got the whole resource of the state behind us. So actually, his view is that actually the care system should be so damn good that anyone would be proud, any parent would be proud to have their kids in it, which clearly isn't where we are at the moment, but actually we should be producing something that actually is really good for those children and young people in our care. And so that's driven in terms of the benchmarking forum and in improving our offer in terms of actually making sure we can get as many young people into good, safe accommodation, in terms of actually making sure young people are part of designing services, in terms of making sure young people have education, employment and apprenticeship options, in terms of making sure they've got the emotional wellbeing support that they need. So that's what we aim to do. And I think another thing that's really I've learned through the benchmarking forum that's been really useful is the importance of not trying to do everything in your own as a sort of local authority. But actually, there's lots of big people in the wider community, whether that's voluntary sector, business sector, that actually want to support as well. There's that famous African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And that's one of the things that we've been trying to do in Coventry in terms of actually working with our businesses in the city. So that's been things like actually sort of getting guaranteed jobs for young people, things like actually getting an discount on water bills for all care leavers. And those sort of relationships and things would probably never have happened if it wasn't for being inspired to pursue that through the benchmarking forum. So yeah, it's been a really good experience being part of the forum. We love being members, and sort of it's something that we're really proud of being a part of and helping to steer and be involved in more over the years. And so yeah, do ask and find out more. I'm going to hand back over to Hannah.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. That's great. Matt's also part of, we've got a steering group with 9 of the managers that are part of the forum that really shape like the direction of the forum as well. Matt's part of that, which has been really good. Just going to talk a bit about our response to COVID, and I actually only joined the forum in October, so a lot of this happened before I started. But as soon as COVID started, we put on online participation workshops, and it was all about how to engage with young people during lockdown, how to use social media safely, and we had 35 local authorities that engaged with those workshops, and out of that we developed a resource called Maintaining Relationships with Care Leavers. Throughout the sort of pandemic as well, we've been connecting with local authorities and more importantly with young people to find out what the sort of emerging issues are, so that we can sort of flex our programme and the support and the topics that we're looking at to really address those. As Billie Jo mentioned, we've been involved with a digital poverty campaign with a number of other charities called Keep Care Leavers Connected. And this isn't just for the pandemic. This digital access is becoming a necessity, like gas, electric and water. Wi-Fi is a necessity to be able to connect with sort of like modern life that we know of. We also ran just before Christmas a Christmas in Lockdown workshop, and as you're probably aware, like Christmas for care leavers can be a really difficult time on a normal year, and obviously with the lockdown that we were having at the time, it became even more challenging. So we got people together to discuss ideas, and people went away with lots of sort of fresh ideas and new ways that they could connect with care leavers and keep them supported over the festive sort of time. We've had a health and mental health focus. Obviously, all of our events went virtual, and that's actually been quite positive. For some of the events, we've had more local authorities taking part. So we're looking at how we can offer sort of hybrid events in the future. And also, it's been a really good time of growth. We've had another 10 local authorities that joined us in that period. In terms of sort of planning our work, sort of moving forward and our focus, we did a workshop which involved young people, frontline workers and managers, talking about what topics they'd like to see covered at events, what are the main issues that are coming out. And if you look right in the centre of this sort of diagram, you'll see where everything crossed over. So mental and emotional wellbeing, employment and apprenticeships, financial pressures for young people, digital poverty, the need for positive stories, and supported accommodation and rent. And we're using this as we sort of plan our focuses for the next year. We're using this feedback to very much shape that. So these are some of the things that we're looking, hopefully as we're coming out of COVID, these are our sort of focus areas at the moment. So first of all, around employment. In the beginning of the year in January, we held a roundtable meeting with the Children's Minister, and that was all about getting care leavers employment at the top of the agenda. Since then, we've been invited to speak about this with the Ofsted Inspectors or Summer Conference, and we're going to be part of a group. We're going to work alongside a group that's working between the sort of Department for Work and Pensions, that has a lot of sort of employment strategies, and then the Department for Education, which looks after care leavers. We've also got 10 of our local authorities a part of a peer learning group, and they're getting together every 2 months, and they're each working on an initiative around care leavers and employment, and they're coming back with feedback, sharing good practice, what's working. So that's a really exciting project that we're working on at the moment. Mental health is going to be an issue that we're going to keep on the agenda for this year, and we're supporting Drive Forward. If you're in the UK, Drive Forward are doing an excellent campaign around ensuring that care leavers can access designated mental health support. So we're working with them on that. In terms of sort of coming out of lockdown as well, we keep being told by care leavers that they're quite concerned that as people are talking about, oh, we're coming out of lockdown, we're going to be able to see people, we're going to be able to go places, that because of the financial restrictions that they live under, and because of their sort of often the fact that they don't have much contact with family, they may not have as many friends as other people, that they're worried that they're going to feel left behind and even more isolated. So if you are working with care leavers, do bear that in mind as you're talking to them during this sort of period of change as well. We've done some work around the universal credit campaign. So when COVID started, the amount of benefits that people got increased by £20, and we're campaigning that would stay the same, that would remain at that level, because it's made a significant difference to care leavers. Digital poverty, we've talked about. We're also engaging with the care review. So there's like a once in a generation review at the moment of children's services, and we're engaging as much as we can with that, and making sure that the voice of care leavers is right at the heart of that, and making sure some of those sort of strategic blockages for care leavers will be identified and hopefully addressed in the review. So loads of opportunities for the year ahead, and that's the end of the presentation. So I will stop sharing, and I'll hand back over to Darren, who's going to sort of manage any questions.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks very much. There's no questions yet in the box, but I wanted just to pick up on a few points, really. Matt, I know you've in Coventry done a lot of work around social media as well, haven't you? And how to actually develop that with young people right across the board using various platforms such as Facebook, WhatsApp, and that type of thing. That's been really helpful, I think, hasn't it, in helping young people to manage COVID, and obviously it'll be important in the future to actually manage the next few months as we come out of that COVID lockdown as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've always used quite a lot of way, and we found that's been a really effective way of engaging young people. And we've used Facebook for a number of years, but over the last sort of year or so with COVID, that's expanded into other forms of social media, especially. And we appointed just before we went into COVID, actually, we appointed a care leaver as our social media apprentice, and he sort of now manages that. And we've done all sorts of things. We use a lot of Instagram as well now. We found that's been more Facebook more recently, so that's been good. But we different things, and that's from individual young people using messaging workers through to live cookery demonstrations, competitions, polls, stuff like that. We actually did one a few weeks back where me and the director of children's services got interviewed on Instagram live by some of our kids, which I have to say was absolutely terrifying, because we were questions coming at us with no preparation at all, and you obviously sort of live on the internet doing it. So fair play to my director, especially for being happy to do it. And it was great. We had probably about 20 care leavers on the session asking questions, ones that would never have come to a sort of formal meeting in our council house or anything. So I think it does just give a different way of working. I think there are some things from the pandemic that have been useful in terms of learning new ways of working that we'll use going forward, I think. But I think actually, you know, you can't do it all online, and I think that's really important as well. Actually, like throughout the whole pandemic, we've had and seeing young people regularly. We sort of developed a Meals on Wheels service where workers were cooking food and taking meals out of leavers, and that's been really popular. That was really popular as well. And so I think just trying to, you know, ultimately make sure that our young people know that we're there and we care about them, and there's different ways of doing that. One way is there's ways of doing that online, and there's ways of doing it face to face, and it's just trying to work out what the best thing to do is. Just like actually we would for our own friends and family as well. It should be the same approach in my view.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that some local authorities haven't been very confident about using social media for privacy issues and data protection and stuff. But you sharing that at the benchmarking forum gave people a lot more confidence to actually go back to their local authority to develop this service. And so that's a beautiful example, isn't it, of how the benchmarking forum works, is that you've overcome some of the challenges, some of the difficulties, and absolutely shared that with the benchmarking forum, allowing everybody to gain in confidence and learn from some of the maybe obstacles that you originally came up, and don't have to do that when they go back.
Yeah, I think to me there's two key things, there's probably three things actually. Firstly, you can get the ideas from other authorities, but then secondly, like you say, I think there's all sorts of things where one authority's done them and others haven't. So that gives you probably two things. It gives you firstly the political push, because local authorities don't like being left behind. So if you say, if a no very quickly turns into a yes, if you say, well, they're doing it down the road from us, so why are you saying we can't do it? That immediately changes how people think. And then I think there's a practical side too, actually. If someone's already developed a policy, sharing agreement or whatever that is, then you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can get resources from elsewhere and speed that process up. So I think, yeah, it just makes much more sense than all trying to do it on our own, doesn't it? So I think it's really helpful.
It does, Matt, it does, thanks. And Billie Jo, just you mentioned in your presentation about Mark Riddell, and I wasn't quite sure if people understood who Mark was, but we do have a national advisor for leaving care. He's part of the Department of Education. So he has a link with the Minister of Education and Employment, and he's quite an influential person across the country, across England. And he asks for that sort of information. And the benchmarking forum is a format by which we can get fairly quick responses from a whole range of local authorities from different areas, some inner city, some rural, some a mixture of both really. But it actually means that instant information can get flowed straight through to government via really young people using systems like Kahoot and other systems we're using in order to gather information. So I think that's been really interesting, isn't it, how we've developed sort of communication techniques through lockdown in order then to get fairly quick instant responses directly to ministers of education who have influence in changing law and policy. Do you think that's a fair thing to say?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important.
I was nodding. I didn't realise I was muted. Yeah, no, definitely. Like when we use Mentimeter and things, we get viewpoints on a lot of questions from a lot of people very quickly, which is always good.
Sorry,
Billie
Hannah,
Jo,
did you want to add something?
I was just say, Billie Jo, I think would you be happy to explain how your role works, you and the other sessional workers as well, because people might be interested in how that works.
Yeah, so there's 5 sessional workers. We're just recruiting sessional workers. But there's 5 sessional workers at the moment, and we're based right across the country in all different local authorities. But before becoming sessional workers, we were all just volunteers with the benchmarking forum. We were just care leavers that, well, I'm saying just, but we were just care leavers that attended the events. We're all care leavers. We all have really good links with our own local authority. We've all done plenty for the benchmarking forum in the past. But at present, our get the young people together, help with so we have WhatsApp groups with young people in that have been champions. So we talk in them, encourage people to get involved, attend these sort of things. Just trying to bring the young person's point of view, but encouraging more young people to get involved. Yeah.
That's great. Billie Jo, thanks. Yeah, I mean, you are an invaluable resource, I think, within the benchmarking forum. Another important resource is the web page, isn't it? We've got a website where people can ask questions about practice and law and a whole range of other things.
Yeah.
And when they created something that's new, whether that's a participation plan or an event, or they're doing something that's a celebration event, they can put that on the website, and we can all learn from that, can't we, and see how it's actually worked well in those local authorities. It's a brilliant way to actually channel and actually raise the profile of looked after young people and care experienced young people, because what we want to do is create, ultimately, I guess, a more joined up system. So if we can link in with the Department of Work and Pensions, with mental health services, with a whole range of other services, the National Health Service, and a whole range of things like that, we can access that provision and then see where links can be made, because we live and work in complex situations and complex structures. And the benchmarking forum is a way of trying to bridge the gap between all of those different professions, in order then that young people don't fall through the net, essentially, because sometimes that does happen, and we want to make sure that we can pick those up.
I think the benchmarking forum helps to realise as well, so even though the NHS is like a countrywide service, some local authorities have a really, really good relationship with the NHS and their mental health services, and then some don't. But then them two local authorities speaking to each other and saying, well, we have this good relationship because we done A, B and C. That local authority can then go back and say, well, so-and-so's doing A, B and C. Why aren't we doing that? We'd have a better relationship if we just mirror what they're doing in their local.
And that's so true, isn't it?
Country.
Yeah, and we're working with 10 local authorities at the moment to develop an employment and skills group for young people, because we recognise that COVID-19 is going to present real challenges for employment for the whole of the population, and our concern is that young people who are care experienced might be left behind a little bit on that, and we as good parents, and that's what we should be, need to actually adapt and develop ways in order then to make sure that we put our young people at the top of the list as best we can. And whether that's an internal apprenticeships, and I know Matt in Coventry, you've been working really hard on those things, and as you talked about before, linking in with businesses in and around the local authority, that's crucially important as well, in order then we can actually raise the profile and success of young people, because what we want is to help them aspire to their dreams, really, and education, employment and training is one element of helping them to actually do that.
Like a family business, like what some of the care leavers say. You'd give your own son and daughter a job if you had a family business. So as a good corporate parent, you should give them an apprenticeship, or at least have the opportunities there if they needed them.
Yeah. And I think that's the key word, it's opportunities, isn't it? And that's what we really want, is to present as many opportunities as we can, so that young people can really grab those and then move forward in this really important transition in their life.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Okay, so I just wanted to thank you guys, Matt, Hannah and Billie Jo as well, for your presentations this afternoon. It's been really interesting and inspiring, and I know we've spoken in the past, but I always find it really interesting talking to you three guys. It is one of those things where we always learn something somewhere along the line. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. This is now the end of the presentation. So just a big thank you, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks very much. Bye now.